Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's program with Coach Menachem. Thank you for joining us. Today, we did it a little bit earlier to accommodate Dr. Ham's schedule. Tonight's program is Share 218. And first, I thank every week for all the participants for joining every Sunday night and being part of it. It's a place that we could have very important conversations, talk about things, and it's called a Sichas Chaverim, a place to talk things out and get clarity. And I really appreciate everybody coming every week and letting people know about it. If anybody wants to join the WhatsApp chats, you can WhatsApp me at 732-314-1710, and I will add you to the community chats where we post all the speakers, all the upcoming, all the recordings and everything there. Or you can go to Menachem Bernfeld's website, menachembernfeld.com. You can sign up for his email letters. For all the people that are watching this on YouTube, you can click on the subscribe button. So every week when we post the videos over there, for the past 218 programs, they're all there. You can get notified. You can click on the like button. And thank you to all the advertising sponsors of Lakewood Scoop here in Lakewood, New Jersey, Ellie and Ariel from Five Town Central, and Chayla from JCN. In general, the time is at 9 p.m. We do this every Sunday night, but it happens to be we're doing it at 8 o'clock tonight. Next week, September 2nd, we're going to have an amazing program. It hasn't been confirmed the details yet. As soon as we have it confirmed with the speaker, we will let everybody know. And we're going to start off first tonight with an opening statement from the host, Coach Menachem Bernfeld. Coach Menachem, what are we doing here?
Oh yeah, what are we doing? Great question. I want to welcome everyone, all the newcomers, to Let's Get Real with Coach Menachem. It's a very straightforward question and topic, trauma. It sounds straightforward, but we'll get into it. I want to thank Rabbi Shais Taub and Dr. Jacob Ham for being with us tonight. And it's not an easy discussion. The more we're in this world, the more you talk to people, we need some clarity. Whether we know what it is or we don't, people are hurting. People are going through real, everybody uses the word trauma. We can discuss when is it trauma, what's not trauma, we'll discuss it. But people are going through a very hard time and trying to figure out how do we heal? How do we heal? And people are going to therapy, whether it's years and money and trying modalities and different things and retreats like we'll hear. And many people feel, oh, slowly things are working out, they're getting somewhere. Others, even if they do feel things are working out, but they're after a while, they're like, I feel like I'm in the same place or maybe even worse. And they're trying to figure out, is there a way to heal from this, whatever this is? And just a moment of silence for all those people out there who are suffering. It's not easy. And I personally know many, many that are doing a lot of work, and it's so hard. They're trying to figure it out, pinpoint. What do? I try this, I try that. Should I stick to it? Should I continue? Should I change? So this is our discussion tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to get some clarity what it is, what does healing look like, and my tefillah is Hashem should help us all. We should get clarity. We should have siyata d'shmaya. We should understand a little bit. Every person should understand, where am I? Why do I feel this way? And what can I do about it? Emetz Hashem. So let's get started.
Okay, so let's jump into it. We want to really get as much time as possible, Dr. Ham. So we're really going to cut out a lot of things that we normally do. Tonight's title is Trauma. What is it? And what does healing look like? And tonight's put together by Yochanan Palter from Fresh Start. I'm going to speak a minute about Fresh Start, and then Yochanan will add anything that I missed. And I'm going to read then Dr. Ham's bio, and then Dr. Ham is going to speak. So Fresh Start, Jewish Fresh Start, is a program for Jewish Orthodox people that people go there for a week. It's an intense therapy program. And basically, a lot of people that go there, I don't know how many people have been there, but the program is already a few years old. I'm assuming there's already hundreds of people that already attended and got a lot of healing from it. I know a lot of people that attended. I could tell you from somebody that attended, they had mind-blowing week. They told me that it really made a big difference in their life. It got them years deep into therapy, and they really hit certain parts of their work that they never did with their therapist. And how do I know it's true? Because I'm that person, because I was there. And I was really blown away by it. So I really hold with the program a lot. Again, it costs money, and you have to be dedicated to wanting to get the help and to really try to work on yourself. And it doesn't work for everybody. It has to be, the right setting. They do an intake. But that's what all I have to say about Fresh Start. I have a lot more to say, but I don't want to waste any of Dr. Ham's precious time. Yochanan, what did I leave out?
No, Oshi, I'm not gonna ruin an amazing, impactful speech that you just gave. All I would say is that if somebody wants to, it's built for adults in the From Torah world, based on Torah values. Men and women are separate groups. It's 7 days, Sunday to Sunday. To learn more, visit jewishfreshstart.com or feel free to call us at 248-301-9997. We have the privilege of working and getting expert supervision by people like Dr. Ham. I'm excited about tonight. I think it's an important discussion for our community. And that being said, thank you for giving me the opportunity to make this wonderful program. Thank you, Rabbi Shais, for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Ham. And take it away, Yoshi.
Dr. Jacob Ham is a clinical psychologist, associate clinical professor in psychiatry, and the doctor of the Center for Child Trauma and Resilience at the Lacan School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. He spends much of his time training and consulting others and treating and working with children, families, and adults who have experienced family trauma. In short, he is as we call him, the godfather of trauma in the trauma world. And we really want to get into a deep discussion of what it is, understanding it. We throw the term out lightly. My kid misses the bus, he's traumatized, so we really want to understand what trauma is, and we want to understand how it affects us. And then the $1,000,000 question is, we want to understand how we could start healing from it. So that's why I'm here tonight. That's why I came. And Dr. Jacob Ham, Rabbi Taub, if you want to start, however you want to go. Rabbi Taub, how about you open it up a little bit?
You know what? I know Dr. Ham. He's very humble and soft-spoken, so I'm going to get him going.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, yeah. And then I'll sort of stand back. First of all, Dr. Ham and I had a discussion a few years ago, a little, I think 20, 30-minute discussion about trauma. But this is a much bigger opportunity because we have much more time here, and plus we have more people involved, and we also have the audience, and we'll be taking questions. So we have a real opportunity to go very, very deep with somebody who is uniquely qualified to answer our questions in this area. For a full disclaimer, I just want everyone to know I don't have any, like 0, 0, 0, 0 training in trauma. Not only am I not an expert, I know really nothing about it, but I care about people. I see that it's something that people are dealing with, and that itself makes it worthy of my attention and something that I would like to know more about. So we have Dr. Ham, who's the expert, or one of the world's experts. And I'm going to ask a very simple question, Dr. Ham, a very simple question, which is, what is trauma? Just what is it?
I warned everyone that I would not answer that question. And this is how we start. And it's important still, the question is so important. It's interesting because you want me to like lay down the basics and get everyone on the same page in terms of the foundation of trauma. But I actually think that if we did that, we would be swerving into the wrong path already.
Can you explain to us why it's not going to work to try to just give this a definition? Just define the word. It's a word. Give it a definition. Why is that not going to work?
I want to give you a working definition. I want to give you a working definition for something that doesn't yet have a name. Not that it doesn't have a name, but I'd rather not get naming and ideas activated.
Okay.
God, this is going to be so strange. And I want it to be fresh. Can you please remind me of what the invocation was again that we started with?
We asked that we should be guided, that whatever needs to be heard by whoever is listening tonight, including all of us here, should flow through us with as little resistance as possible, and that we are presenting ourselves humbly to be vessels for whatever message needs to be heard.
It is so fascinating that invocation is exactly the sentiment I'm trying to get at. That if we strain to define it, we're already getting in the way of the answer. And for me, the answer of what is trauma actually should be the question that the audience can ask themselves is, do I have trauma? That's a worthwhile question. But then the answer isn't to look at symptom checklists or whatever anyone else says. And in this book I'm writing, I'm kind of going off the way that I'm writing the book. What I would love to do is to ask your body. I would love the audience to take a minute to just ask their bodies, do I have trauma? And what does that mean to them? And the answer is going to be myriad. And that becomes much richer than any answer that an academic or some expert could give.
Can I ask a very, very simple question? Perhaps it's an obvious question, but why do you specifically want each of us to ask our bodies?
Our bodies are much wiser than our minds are. And so much of what trauma does is that it makes us disconnected from our bodies. So much of our society also does that. And we overprivilege the mind and ideas and being smart. And people with trauma get very disconnected from their bodies. They can't feel what happened to them. It would be overwhelming because it was legitimately overwhelming. And so it's much safer to live in the mind. And so if I already start to talk to people's minds, then I'm already engaging with a part of them that's guarded against accessing and healing from trauma.
That's why you didn't want to answer the question, what is trauma? You felt that that was like the opposite of acknowledging and dealing with the trauma. You didn't want to go into an intellectual discussion.
Yes, the healing has already started. It's not that we have to define and then go into how. We're doing the how now. And the how is a way of being with ourselves and with each other. That's not just mind to mind. It's full presence. And I think we talked about this in our first conversation.
Yes, we did. Yes, yes.
Presence is this state of being open to the information that's coming from our bodies and from our hearts, and using our mind to only be an advocate for or an interpreter for this deeper wisdom and from God or whatever it is that we invoke that's beyond us.
If I take you off course, just let me know, and I'm happy to recalculate my path here. But I'm just wondering, when you're talking about check in with our body, ask our body is wiser than we give it credit for being. In fact, our body is going to have a more important perspective on this than our mind will. I think for a lot of people, that's very, not just foreign language, but almost like bizarre language. Like, talk to my body. Like, is that just something I have to get used to hearing, or is there any way you can help me to feel more comfortable with this concept?
Help me again. Who are you? When you said that, were you saying it for yourself or for the other person that you imagine?
Well, I'm saying it for myself vicariously because I deal with so many people, and I maybe I internalize their reactions, and I'm just imagining the people that I would be, the average person I would be speaking to would sort of, give that eye roll and be like, even someone who's interested in this topic might feel a little bit like, okay, this is a little bit funny. It's a little weird talking to my body. What does this? What does it even mean? So I'm just feeling that feeling of somebody kind of judging it or feeling it's weird.
Oh, that would be really good. That would be juicy if it was weird.
Yeah.
Purely intellectual, then it's a different conversation. But if it's weird, then that means that the body's already talking to the person.
You're saying that when the spider senses are tingling, when the body is saying, hey, this is funny, we're already getting somewhere.
Yes, the body's already talking to us. It's saying, I don't like this. This is making me uncomfortable. And I don't have the trappings of the mind to contain what I'm about to experience.
Okay. So this discussion about bodies talking is weird. It's making me feel I'm exaggerating my personal response to it, but yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. And then I would say, I would be so happy like I just was. And I would say, your body's already telling us something. Would you mind taking a moment and sitting back in the mind, in the center of your mind, and say, it's weird, huh? And then you just wait and see what else comes up. What do you imagine someone would say to that? Or what do you imagine might arise for someone who thinks it's weird?
Well, depending on how quickly they can peel away the defensive layers, they might say something. And this is just what came up for me, which is like, maybe I don't even want my body to talk.
Right. Exactly. And that's already making things more poignant. And I call it thicker because I don't have a word for it. Like thin is if we were trying to define trauma, but we're sinking deeper. It's the space is getting thicker between us.
Use this as like abstract and concrete.
What do you mean?
Thin and thick is like abstract and concrete.
No. Thin is when only the minds are talking to each other.
Oh, you're talking about the connection between us is thin when it's a mind-to-mind connection.
Yeah, I think so. I think connection, but it's both connection, but the experience of the moment for me too. What thick is like poignancy, felt sense, like a humming, like it feels divine and sacred. Like the whole self is open, and we're really in the invocation of having God speak through us. We are not in the way.
I thought I was going to wait until the end of tonight to get to this, but I'm just going to respect the flow here, and I'm going to. I thought this would take us an hour to get to this point. I hope this isn't over intellectualized, but for me, this whole concept of listening to the body having a consciousness or a perspective, and its perspective being valuable, to me, this is really about what, when in Jewish tradition, we're taught about the whole purpose of the creation of the physical world. Like, why does there even need to be a physical world? And we're told that ultimately there's a physical world so that the physical world should be perfected. And a perfected physical world means obviously all of the things that we relate to materially, that all the bodily needs are in abundance, and then there's no scarcity, and no famine, no war, no disease, on all of those things. But also there's like this divine consciousness, but it's specifically a bodily consciousness. The prophet refers to V'rocho basar yachdov, that all flesh will perceive godliness. And so it's like this messianic concept in the Jewish faith is that the physical world will become so refined that the body will have not only a perception of godliness, but the body's perception of godliness will be superior to what the soul is privy to. Even the soul in heaven, where it's disembodied and it supposedly sees and hears and experiences all this great divine light, but what the body will experience in the physical world when it's completely refined, that will be greater than everything. So it's like, I hope I'm not getting too philosophical or too theological, but when you're talking about this importance of this body, to me, it's like, this is the concept of, I'll use the Hebrew word of Mashiach.
Okay. Now, it, the, we're already in a divine place because the invocation already set us up in the right spirit that I wanted to be in. And what you just did by going to the end means that we have nowhere else to go but whatever is unexpected. I love that. And what you did initially, I was disagreeing with because it was privileging the object rather than the verb, the body. You were thinking about the body, right? And what the purpose of the body was. And I am all about verb. And what that means is to be in a state of receptivity and openness. I've been playing with the idea of open versus contracted or closed or whatever. And so sitting with the body, to me, I don't care if you're listening to your body or listening to a stone on the floor. It's just that you're in a state of receptivity and openness and supple-heartedness. And then that's where I was going to go with the first part of your answer. But then the second part of your answer got us to mystery and awe, because you suddenly turned everything up on its head and made the body the most divine thing, which is exactly. And then I got into a state of having my mind fractured by that in the best way. And then I'm in the state of awe again. I think that's a really beautiful thing you did. You
good.
you used mind to lure the people who want answers from the mind, and then you left them with something that was beyond what the mind could make sense of.
Can we go back a step? Because I think I want clarity. What do we mean that we want to listen to our body? Can we be more practical what that means? And what does it actually,
No,
what does it mean? It means I'm closing my eyes and I'm feeling pains, physical. What am I feeling?
no. See, you are not
My
in.
back hurts. My toe hurts.
It's an energy. It's a state of being, not an object. You're not looking for something. You're in a state of receptivity. And it's the other idea that I've been playing with is being in front of or with or a little behind whatever's coming up. And the way that you're asking this question is you're in front of the answer. You already want to know what you're looking for. Whereas the ideal state to be in is a little bit behind the question. Like, to really slow down and just say, you ask the question without anticipating an answer. And then you'll be surprised at what comes up, or the answer will be something where you say, I knew this all along, but I don't, it's you again. You say that. And in a way that, and then something else will come up. It's you again. Oh, I don't like seeing you. Or, oh, it's you again, with tenderness. And then whatever your reaction is to that becomes the next thing that needs to be observed. So I think we're coming upon how I define or make sense of trauma. Trauma is a state of being fractured from ourselves, when every level of ourselves is disconnected from the other levels, our heart, mind, body, soul. And it's about our relationship to ourselves, whether we embrace and love every aspect of ourselves or renounce it. And that's enough of a definition for me. That I don't want to say enough of a definition. That's actually the most functional definition for trauma as a therapist that I have. Because then whenever I'm listening to anyone, I'm listening for, are you connected and whole? Do you have integrity of self? And how do you feel about yourself? And I'm going to just work on those two processes. And I almost don't even listen to what they're talking about. I only listen for how they're talking about it and how they feel.
The energy, the feel.
Exactly.
Now,
One second, Rabbi Taub, can we go to a live question for a second?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Robin, could unmute yourself.
Hi, Dr. Hum. I have a question that actually kind of relates to the relationship that I have with myself, which is interesting that you mentioned that. So recently I struggled with a breakup and I noticed some reckless tendencies coming up in my behavior. And I guess my main question is, I'm having a hard time recognizing if that's authentic to who I am or if I'm avoiding something because I'm having fun. But at the same time, I guess there's a lot of society telling me, I go out drinking with my friends, I go like stay out really, really late. In some aspects, I'm not taking care of myself, but I'm like, I'm having fun. I know I'm probably intellectualizing this, but I guess that's my question is like, am I being that feels authentic, but I get in my head and I'm questioning, is this authentic? Am I doing something wrong? Yeah.
No, I would need more time with you. And I don't know if we have permission to
Get permission to do whatever you want, Doctor.
okay. You have to slow that down.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah,
I
I'm
do,
nervous.
what?
I said, yeah, I'm nervous. I feel like fast paced right now, but yeah, I'll try to slow it down.
The things you said were intellectualized. And on the plane of right and wrong behavior,
Mm-hmm.
which is close to action and ideas, those are all very surface level ways of experiencing the world.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that to be a criticism. Your
No,
face.
no, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank
What you'd have to do is you'd have to look at the part that wants to be reckless
you. Mm-hmm.
and get to know her. What
Yeah,
does she get from that? You said it's partly fun.
for sure. Yeah.
And I also hear it's partly who I want to be with. It's partly what I want. And I don't want other people to tell me I can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I think that hits the nail on the head. It feels like a really like great sense of autonomy when I do stuff like that. Maybe.
and you use the word reckless. So then I'd wonder whether there's a part of it that is, I want to hurt myself or put myself in harm's way.
Mm, maybe. I'd have to sit with that for a second, but yeah, that's very possible. That's very
Well,
possible.
it's also incredible if it isn't. And it's just you saying, screw it. I'm tired of being oppressed by the shoulds about who I should be. And I just want to be free and be myself. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a sense of liberation in this reckless behavior that you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. That resonates. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's another part of you that's saying, I don't know if this is the right thing to do. It's people are going to frown upon this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Wait, you just rolled your eyes at that. What?
I roll my eyes. Yeah, I roll my eyes because it's funny. I'm an ex-LDS person and I'm in Utah right now. So that's why I roll my eyes because I'm experiencing a lot of, I guess, my own projection of like judgment from people while I'm here. So that's what I'm kind of rolling my eyes at. But yeah.
I see. So you're rolling your eyes at the fact that you've internalized
Yeah.
judgment.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. I would also encourage you to imagine that that part of you is actually a friend of yours too, not just someone that you need to get rid of.
Which part of me? I'm sorry. Maybe
The
I lost that.
judgmental part.
Oh, okay. The judgmental part is a part of me that I need to make friends with. Is that what you said?
I did, but I don't like the way that sounds now.
Okay.
What I
Okay, fair.
now I want to revise it and say that judgmental part is already one of your best friends.
Okay.
And it wants to make sure that people don't criticize you, that you don't lose people who matter to you by doing something that'll offend them or get their disapproval or make them not love you anymore.
Yeah.
So this,
Yeah.
see how your face just changed and you went deeper, a little softer.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I feel emotional thinking about it, I guess, because it resonates. Yeah, I just didn't realize that it was a part of myself that I was pushing away, maybe.
Ah,
Um,
oh, you have love for this part.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
See how do you mind if we stop?
Yeah, please. Go,
Did
yeah,
we
whatever.
answer your questions?
Mhm.
We answered your question without answering your question.
Yeah. I didn't expect it to go there, but it did answer the question. And it's something that I feel like I have to sit with now. Yeah.
I gave you a more satisfying answer or experience than the answer to the question.
Yeah. Because I guess I'm going into it, maybe I'm like, oh, tell me I'm being reckless, but instead it was more uh make friends with the side of myself that's, got that judgment. And I didn't really think of it that way, I guess. Yeah.
But even that I'm dissatisfied with because it's
I
still,
feel like I need to listen to it back. It's
oh,
just
no,
hard
no, no,
because
no,
there's like
no.
two,
No,
because
you
there's
did
like too
everything
many people
perfectly.
in this.
This is the problem. Like I say things that sound critical at first, and I don't
No,
mean
no,
for
no.
anything.
Yeah. Hmm.
What I mean is that how I would describe what happened to you is
Hmm.
that you, I would want you to describe the emotional arc you took, not the intellectual
Hmm.
realizations you made.
Yeah.
Can you redo that?
Oh, that's tough. Um, well, I guess I just felt myself, I felt like my shoulders kind of go down a little bit.
The whole arc,
Ugh.
where you started from and where you ended up.
Where I started, I was really anxious, really nervous, and maybe scared of judgment from you and from the audience. And then as we went into it a little bit more, I don't know, maybe I think I'm having a hard time explaining it in that way.
Can I try and you tell me if I got it right?
Okay.
Fascinating. You asked a question, even though you were scared of judgment, and you said there was a part of you that was hoping for approval too, or permission or
Hmm.
something like that.
Yeah, permission. Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I start to not answer your questions in the way you're expecting, you discovered a part of you that you don't have a good relationship with, but you actually still love.
Hmm. Yeah, I have compassion for her, for sure. Yeah, love and compassion.
And you ended in a place of saying, oh, this feels good. I want to go spend more time with her.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, for the audience, for the rest of the audience, and for everyone else, can we uh, rewind and break down why this is a better answer to the question of what is trauma than answering the question or answering any question like this? Wait, do I need to do it? I probably do. Or did
What
anyone
you're
watch
saying,
it?
I'll try to break it down. What you're saying in short, what trauma is when you need to sit with the thoughts and the feelings in your body and let it and meet it and sort of see where it takes you without judgment, without saying it's good or bad or I'm reckless or I'm not. And when those feelings take you, that's where you start really seeing who the real you is. And then you could start seeing, I guess, the parts that are in pain. That's what I would guess.
Right. I think that's probably right, but I don't think in terms of objects again. So I'm trying to fit your answer to mine. And I have more of a process answer, which is that when we ask questions from our minds, we need to slow down and inquire what's driving the question for emotionally or relationally. Because it's not just that Robin had emotions about it. She had a relational intent behind her question, either shame me or disapprove of me. I need to know where I stand in the eyes of the other. Um,
Doctor, since we're talking about the importance of process over object, I hope it's okay if I sort of ask some questions about the process that we just observed, which I found to be extremely poignant and compelling. It seemed like what you were doing, you had mentioned earlier that trauma is a fragmentation of self. And I know you don't want to give definitions, but as close as you came to a definition was, it was a fragmentation from self. And it seemed like in that little 2-3 minute exchange, basically your suspicion was that this voice of disapproval, or even I think you were starting from the voice of the drive for autonomy, which is a reaction to a voice of disapproval, that these are different parts of a fragmented self, and that it seemed like your underlying assumption was that there's some type of internal harmonization that needs to happen here. Like, for someone who's never seen anything like this before, could you just unpack it a little bit and talk about these parts of self and how they came apart and how they come back together and why they are supposed to come together? And could we give it any language, or does it have to be completely experiential? Like, do we have to have every single person? We have 348 people here. We could have each of them undergo that 2-3 minute experience, but maybe you could just narrate that process a little bit.
I will, as long as everyone knows that it's all metaphor. It's all pretend.
Yes.
I'm about to say. The only thing that matters is the state of being in divine grace with God. Sorry.
We will not hold you to your words. They're just symbols that we're using to get as close as we can get.
Yes. And yeah, I don't even, the parts were just the right tools to use in that moment, but they don't, and I could tell a story about the legend of the parts and how they're born, but I'm still afraid that will coalesce too much into the land of ideas. What I might want to say that's related to parts is that there are always parts of us that we do not want to touch, that hold the memories of all of our most traumatic experiences. There are parts of us that we're ashamed of because it's reckless, because it's callous, it's overambitious and arrogant, and there are parts of us that we cling to as who we are, because it's what helped us survive. And then there are parts that just take over when all hell breaks loose. I'm okay to say that, right?
So Dr. Can I just make sure I understand correctly? What you're saying is, let's say I had a very hard upbringing, and the way I dealt with certain parts of my upbringing is when I was in a situation, I became very aggressive or very tough or fought back. So that part that I created of myself, that's the part we're talking about. That is, it's almost like IFS, like different parts of you. So that's the part that you're referring to, like something that we created that we lean on.
Sure, that works. Yeah, IFS gets it. IFS gets it right.
Just explaining, IFS just means the theory is just basically a person has multiple different parts, and by different situations, different parts in us come out. There could be the super clean part, the super OCD part, the super smart part, the super.
Well, there's there are the I forgot what IFS calls the exiles, which I just call the inner children, and that's what it was called before IFS was created. And they're the ones who remember what the trauma was. And if you're looking at Native American traditions, it's just a fragment of your soul that gets separated from your body during the trauma. So there are all kinds of names for that part. And then in IFS, I think the next collection of parts are called managers, right? And then there's I forget, or protectors maybe, and there's managers and firefighters or something like that.
Basically, in short, and not forget about what the technical terms are. It's just that we have different parts. Some are good, some are bad, and not good or bad. They're just, we've learned to use certain parts at certain times.
Some are not good or bad. Some are more rigid than others.
Some are more rigid and some are more caretakers and some are more they do different tasks because we
They
trained
do
ourselves
different
because of
tasks.
different traumas
The
or things we've
ones,
been through.
the ones that I would love to talk about are the ones that are mean to us, the inner critic. Because in my view, the inner critic is, let's say that you were a small child, 3, 4 years old, when the first time that you heard, you're the worst, you're the ugliest kid, I can't believe you're my child or whatever. There's a part of us that says, that's the worst thing that could have ever happened. And I do not ever want us to experience that ever again. And so I will suddenly no longer be a beautiful, innocent child, and I will become that thing that hurt us. I will become our own monster inside of us and terrify us and scream and yell at us to make sure that that doesn't happen to us again in the outside world. It's an incredibly brave thing to do for that part, to suddenly lose their innocence and become this thing. On the other hand, sometimes I think they also like being that thing because it's most like the way that their parents are acting. So they're like, yay, I'm on mommy and daddy's team. I'm not one of those, I'm not as ugly and retarded as those parts over there. I'm like, I'm on the good team. See, mommy, I know whenever I'm bad. And I'm like, you just like switch teams.
Somebody wants to ask a question now on this. Can I put them on? And the inner critic.
About that.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You could ask Dr. Ham.
Hi, my name is Corinne Rubin. I have a question. I engage in a lot of therapy post-trauma, but I go through periods where my inner critic becomes extremely strong. To the point where what I do is withdraw from socializing, from people. I do all the responsible things, but I cannot do any fun things because my inner critic, when I do go out, I feel like I don't belong, that I am not good enough to be there. I'm not smart enough. I'm not rich enough, whatever the enough could be. And it comes in cycles or like in roller coasters. How do you stop that inner critic and see yourself in a more accurate way where I do focus on my strengths and not the criticisms? And these were not criticisms from my childhood. They came in marriage.
I'm shaking my head at you because you're still focused on the objects. And you're asking me to make your inner critic more accurate, which is it's not looking at the state of being or the process. You're looking at the objects.
So how do I focus on the process?
And ask the question again from a process way.
How do I ask the question differently? That's even a hard part for me.
Why did you use the word accurate? Not being accurate.
I would hate to think that my inner critic is accurate, because that would really feel low, like that I'm actually loathing myself.
Oh, so this part of you that used the word accurate is kind of more strong and angry than your inner critic is. It fights back.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
So now you have two parts warring with each other. The one that wants to say you're not enough, and the part that says you're wrong. And it's a lovely distraction from the experience of feeling not enough. Your parts are putting on a show for you so that you don't have to sit in this experience of being not enough.
Right, it's exhausting.
It is, they're exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, there's times that my body like I want to say I vomit, but my body vomits.
Oh yeah, definitely.
From the exhaustion. Like I'll come home and it's just, ugh.
Yeah, that's good. But it depends on how you vomit. You have to do it with this awareness
Oh yeah, I'm totally aware when it's happening of the feelings that are accompanying it and the exhaustion, and then I usually have to retreat and sleep.
And compassion. But we're getting off topic with the original thing, I think.
Yeah, how do you, I mean, that inner critic is exhausting.
No, the inner, you said that the battle between the inner critic and this assertive, angry one is exhausting.
Yeah.
So there's another part that says, I'm tired of all this. I want to just go to bed.
Yes, 100%.
And that part spoke up as soon as I said, you're not sitting in the state of not being enough, I think. Do you remember?
Yeah, I don't want to sit in that. It's uncomfortable.
It's not just uncomfortable. That is a minimization.
Yes.
And it's more than, I would imagine that it's more than your marriage. You don't have to answer this. But this is what you sit with. You just sit with the feeling of not being enough.
I think I am adopted, and I think that's a primary not enough.
Right. It's devastating. It feels like it's not possible to recover from that experience of being not enough.
Right.
And so it's an impossible thing to ask yourself to sit in that experience. And yet that is what needs to be done. And in that way, whenever people have to do this level of sitting with, it has to be done surrounded by love and the divine. In being held by others and held by your God, I think, because it is such brutal work.
I think when I think part of the exhaustion comes that I'm also angry at God.
Oh, of course you are. You need that part of you. You need all of those parts with you. You just have to slow things down, put all of those protectors in their right place so that they're part of your counsel. They're not, driving the bus or whatever
So I have to make friends with being angry with God.
Make friends with. You have to accept that that's a valid part of what you should be experiencing when even your, sorry for saying this, but even your mother wouldn't keep you. See, that's even hard for me to say because it's hard for you to say.
No, I understand that.
No, not understand. Not understand.
No, I'm saying I understand it's hard for you to say it to me. I get the difficulty of the whole conversation. It's a hard conversation for me to have with anybody.
And I can feel that.
And it's I mean, I work on processing it, but it becomes intellectual and not emotional.
Exactly. I know.
Well, intellectualizing is an excellent coping skill.
It's an excellent, yes, of course. Don't get rid of it. It works too hard. It's taken over. It's overprivileged in our society, but it's highly functional. But you have to slow down and sit in the experience of being not enough. This is where I think that a real religious belief that makes sense of how people can be born into such horrible suffering helps. And I have wacky religious beliefs from how intense the traumas are that I've faced or witnessed in the people I work with. What are we doing right now? I just went intellectual and religious in response to the fact that I was getting uncomfortable with us sitting in not enough. Have I answered your question?
Somewhat. It's just, I don't think I know how to sit in the not enough and not fight it.
There's no how to. It's okay to fight it. It's the most painful work that any of us could be asked to do. Not having a mother who wants us is the worst trauma.
At that time, just to clarify, because people are asking, I just want to make sure it's super clear. Explain the difference when you keep on saying you're objectifying it versus the process. Just clarify exactly what that means. When people are having the thought that I'm bad, I'm good, you're saying you're objectifying it. You're making an object. What does that mean?
I can feel when a person's mind is in the state of wanting to make reality. You're good, you're bad, you're not enough. No, you're not. I am enough. Like, we're focused on the outside world in some way rather than being in the emotional state without an object. And the emotional state is something like, I'm tired. I don't feel like I'm enough, but that's impossible to experience. So I'd rather keep whipping myself into performing so that I am still trying to be enough. And maybe that's good enough. And then there's a part of me that's so angry that I was not enough, that nothing I do is ever enough. And that's the storm that's happening on an emotional level. And it's more important for people to lose all the objects. Like, this is from my marriage. This is from, like, this isn't right. I'm so good at this. I'm so, like, all of that is distraction. This is why people don't get anywhere with therapy. It's too much litigation. It's not about being in this process of letting the experience go through you.
Doctor, it sounds like you're saying that what you're calling the object or objectifying, another way of saying that might be you're describing it rather than experiencing it.
Sure. Yeah.
And if that's correct, then maybe it's even, well, by describing it, I'm distancing myself from it.
Yes.
Observing it. And to experience it would mean I'm allowing it to have its way with me.
Exactly. You get out of the way. Be humble to the experience that you're supposed to.
Okay.
And when you do that, then you can name. You can say, my poor dear, it hurts so much to have been given up so early, to not be wanted. Whatever it is that you need to say to show your part that you understand them and what pain they're in. You can use naming eventually, but you can feel when it's used to avoid feelings or when it's there to help, like, support and amplify feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like talking about a trip instead of going on the trip, as opposed to coming back from the trip and describing what you saw. Yeah. So let's say somebody has allowed themselves to have the experience. And as you indicated to us earlier, it's an experience in the body. And they're aware of the experience and they're ready to even have language to describe the experience. At that point, what is the work that then needs to be done?
It is surrendering yourself to the mastications of the process. You're going to be chewed up and spit out by the suffering. And I feel it in my body. I feel a little bit like throwing up after what I heard. And I just allow that experience to work through me. It dissolves more of my ego. It makes me more humble. It clears me to be a greater channel for the invocation to work through me. And people who have never been through it and been to the other end are going to be terrified because they think that it's just going to be all suffering all the time and it'll just never be put back in the bottle again. But if you
Can we
can,
talk a little bit about that? Because I sense that there's some misgivings here, hesitation. I think maybe you can give us a little bit of hope after someone submits to this, just sitting with the suffering. Can you maybe talk about what life is like afterwards?
oh, sure. And I don't like the just sitting with the suffering because there's actually a lot to being with the suffering. Being with is, I don't know, it doesn't matter. The language doesn't matter. But I can tell you about the afterwards.
Yeah.
Unburdened light, uh, deeply rooted, reconnected with yourself, with others, with the spirit. Uh, people, their senses get heightened, where colors are more vibrant, music is more beautiful. There's a appreciation of life. Sunsets become more beautiful. A smiling infant breaks your heart. The sound of children laughing breaks your heart. And you want to cry at every beautiful thing in the world. And life becomes bittersweet.
By contrast, that would imply that before there's a certain numbness that one is constantly carrying.
And chasing after only sweets, only the good stuff. Chasing,
Mm.
chasing after only the good experiences. Whereas afterwards, you're just like open to the mystery of the fact that life is equal parts suffering and equal parts joy. Or it doesn't actually seem that way. It seems like there's a river of pain for just the smallest bit of beauty.
So many people would love to be in that place that you just laid out. I think we should go back to understand how do we get there, like we did discuss. How do we sit? How do we connect to the emotions? And what do we need to be able to be with it?
Yeah. Okay. Let's get technical then. You definitely need a guide. Like what I'm doing here, I don't think many people can do. Like I call myself a truffle hunting pig for depth because I can smell, like suffering is like a truffle to me. It's like my favorite food, and I will like snort into the forest, and I can smell it 5 feet below the forest bed. And I just am relentless at finding it because it feels, I love processing suffering because I know what it turns into. And I'm probably more brazen and rough and rude than other therapists would take the risk of being. Like I'm shaking my head at people and saying, no, that's not it. And wrong question and all this other stuff. And my patients, they will mock me. And they're like, oh, wrong question. What do you mean? What a dumb question. They say it in a loving way. And I love the fact that they are so good at making fun of me. So you do need someone who knows how to get there, knows what it feels like. Because basically, I'm looking for, and I'm dissatisfied until we are in a place that feels a little heartbreaky. And in that place, like the energy of love and wanting to hold and hug the other person comes out. And it's not a lot of people are born to be able to tolerate that. I don't think I have a gift for it, for like loving being in this tragic emotional place. Okay, so that's the first thing. You need a guide. You need someone who's going to help. You need someone who's going to hold your hand. You need someone who's going to witness this with you. You need to be able to do all the same stuff for yourself.
What does that mean? To become a guide for yourself at some point?
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell, like
Hi.
like when I said, why did I just go in? I just went intellectual. What was that? So then in that way, I'm smelling that I'm going thin or going up.
Mm.
And then without criticism,
Mm-hmm.
it's more like, oh, that was interesting that I did that. And I did that because I could feel the energy of sitting in my not enoughness is intolerable. And then my body naturally wanted to react to that. And then when I named that, then again, it's not judging. Naming facilitates the next thing to be done. It's like saying, yes, God. I'm using religious metaphors. Yes, God, this is what is supposed to happen next. You just trust. It's okay for me to leave because it was too much. And then you breathe in that. You rest in the separation from that. And then slowly you sink back into the feeling of not enough. You keep gently pendulating into the pain.
I'm going to ask a foolish question. Why are you going for the pain? Why are you trying to root out the suffering? What's there?
Okay.
And the answer can't just be that you're good at it, so you had to figure out how to use your talent. That's not the answer. Why are you going for the deepest pain?
Well,
What's there?
the question is, how did I become so good at it?
Okay,
No,
sure.
no,
You're
no,
willing to share.
no, it's not.
I'm sure everyone would be fascinated. How did you become so good at it?
There were certain moments when I said, enough of this. What's really going on? And I would sit in a fetal position on the ground instead of escaping into protector behavior, into firefighter behavior, whatever suited me that day. And when I sat in it, I heard this little boy's voice from the bottom of a well that said, I just want to be good. And this was like when I was 20 years old. And I said, oh, that's what this is? And then it just shattered whatever I was in. And as a trauma therapist, when you are with someone in this epic battle to help someone reclaim themselves, it's like the best dramatic movie. It's like every archetypal plot of every movie. There's a reason why all these movies have the same arc. It's because it follows the arc that we're supposed to have in our own lives, to reclaim lost parts. And I've had many ceremonial experiences where I've reclaimed parts, and it's left me in this state of bliss and joy and wonder. So I've experienced it myself. I've experienced it with other people. So that's the why, experientially. And then I could give you answers from psychological theory, from trauma theory. I could give you my belief in religion, my religious beliefs about it, but I don't think any of that matters. I think that the better question is, what was witnessed tonight? What did we see? How did
I'm not sure we know.
Well, how did the people feel, Robin and Corinne, who asked their questions?
Do we want to ask them?
Is that okay? Did you get more in 3 minutes than you did in 45 minutes with your therapist? Sorry, that's such a rude way to say it, but
I think rude is okay because it helps us to get some clarity here. I think I'm going to translate a little bit here. What Dr. Ham is, it sounds like, you can please correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but you're saying if we were to have just spoken about it, what you call objectify it, described it, we could have become more eloquent in describing it, but there wouldn't have been a what?
a
A
healing
real
moment.
Hmm?
A healing moment.
A healing moment. A healing moment.
Okay, so Robin unmuted herself. Do you want to say something, Robin? And then I have a question after this.
Yeah, I would just say when I asked the question, I didn't anticipate getting kind of brought back to that younger part of myself, and I really felt something like I just got emotional. So that was really nice. I wasn't anticipating that. Yeah.
Okay. And then the question I would ask for anyone else who witnessed it, did they have an experience watching us do this? BB is raising. Do you want to answer, BB? Oh, people are just raising their hands saying, yes, I did have an experience.
Everybody who felt they had experience, raise your hand. You asked for it.
Okay. The board is lighting up.
I feel like I won the Price is Right.
Wow. Okay. 4 by 8.
More, it's 2 pages.
32 pages. At least 32 people experienced something
Mine
healing.
says up to 40,
Oh, okay.
41. And I'll add myself too. So
Right.
okay, so why did we have an experience? Tell us. It's such a paradox here to ask you to use words and labels to tell us what we experienced, but
Okay. I will come up with an answer that's not mine.
okay.
And what words came in when you were asking the question as I was shaking my head was because our hearts long for this. Our hearts long to be witnessed, seen, connected with other hearts, to experience love again. It's as simple as that. It's a state of, these are acts of love, these moments together. They're moments of love between strangers, of being authentically, more authentic with strangers than we typically are with other people in our lives.
So Dr. M, let me just make sure I understand it correctly. When we sit in what our feelings are without being judgmental or giving it a object or saying, I feel like this because my mother, my father, my ex-wife, my this, my that, and we just feel with who we are without being judgmental on that, it's going to be a hard feeling and a hard reality to learn how to do it and to actually do it because it's probably a new experience and probably a little painful. But what you're saying is that is the actual healing part from that trauma.
That's the actual healing
Face
part.
that trauma. I'm just clarifying. Once you face that trauma and you sit with it, there will be a sense of feeling. Not that you're going to be healed from that, but it's going to give yourself a sense of release. That you're going to be able to breathe through it and feel a sense of contentment. Obviously, you have to work through. Right? Am I understanding correctly?
Maybe I can't tell because you're speaking to me with your mind.
Oh.
Maybe you can teach somebody how to talk with their heart.
Right.
How do we understand the difference?
Oh, I'd want, how do I say your name?
Menachem?
No, your friend.
Usher?
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 Yeah. He's saying, I'm not going to do that. He muted
Usher.
himself.
No, Usher will do it. He'll do it.
Let's go, Usher.
Okay, I'm in. Let's do it. I'm game.
You're trying to summarize what you think I'm saying.
Right.
But I said that you were saying it from your mind and you're using words to try to describe. I think you're doing that on behalf of people to make sure that they're understanding it.
Right.
So you're not talking from your own experience. Are you asking from your own confusion or just concerned about other people?
So let's do it from mine. Okay. I'm going to think of something about myself. Okay. So when I have that feeling of something about myself,
Well, no, the question is actually, is there something about what I'm doing that is confusing that you don't understand?
there's something that I do that is confusing, but I objectified it right away.
No,
I
something that
love objectifying.
were you confused by what I was saying?
No,
Or was your question an earnest question from your own confusion?
for my own confusion.
It was.
Hmm.
I don't know if anyone else can register how the timbre of his voice changed when he said from my own confusion. Did you?
It's a completely different answer because until now he's running a show, and at that moment he's with you.
I know.
I have to know if I'm the president or the client. I don't know. Now I'm the client.
And then you ask yourself, what is there? Is there a confusion in you? Is there a question?
There's a certain mode or element that when I get into that element, it doesn't add up to me. It's something that's off. Being judgmental.
You are confused.
Yes.
And when you just said judgmental, I don't think that's true. I think you're fake. You're performing judgmentalism. You're trying to use the word judgmental. I don't think that doesn't sound like real judgmentalism. You're trying to be a good student about it. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so you're confused. And you said that you like to stay confused. You like to stay in your head in ideas.
I like to, when I get into that mode of, I'm using one specific example of something that's I'm thinking about, but in general, I need to objectify everything, put everything for a reason. Why this behavior is happening is because this and this happened to me, or because I feel it has to make sense to me. Otherwise, I can't live with it.
Okay, see now your tone and your energy changed again. You went back up into that energy. So stay with that energy. Feel that energy. What do you register about the way that feels?
Control,
What else?
power,
Interesting.
intellectual.
And power was way better. Then what I would do if I were working really slowly with you is to say, power, huh? You need to feel powerful. And then you just say that to your body without judgment, just acknowledging and seeing it. And then you wait for whatever happens next.
Should I tell you what comes to my mind when I say that?
If you want, please be judicious and
Feels negative, narcissistic.
Okay, so we got another guardian here. You have lots of guardians who don't want us to pry. Okay, if you being powerful isn't going to protect you from my prying truffle nose, then this criticism is going to come up. And then you just say, you're here too. You want to protect me from wherever we're going. And then we just keep going. How does that feel to just say, oh, you're here too? And you say it with like a hail friend well met, kind of like, oh, my inner critic's here.
It feels much calmer. Just knowing that, when you take away I guess when I take away the feeling of like, oh, he's here and he's like in a bad way, like, okay, it feels much calmer. Like, okay.
Yeah, you're slowly moving into a state of receptivity. I don't know where you would go next. And that now I'm getting excited. Like I'd want to have a long sit with you.
Where my mind goes next is, okay, I accept it. I'm not angry at myself. I'm not judgmental about this behavior. Powerful, narcissistic, whatever the guardians are, I'm cool with that. But how do I actually fix the behavior? How do I not, I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
How do I take it to the next level?
Right.
Because the trauma.
I call that the action hero, the problem solver. That's the next guardian. He's even more sophisticated. He doesn't look so bad as the inner critic. And he's someone that probably got you very far in life and got you to produce a successful podcast and do good in the world. So it's like, hey, why are you criticizing me? I'm the good guy here. And like, these are one of the final protectors to pass through, because he's like saying, don't you want to just be this guy who solves things and knows how to do things? Come on, don't go into the harder stuff. Don't go into the vulnerable belly stuff. Stay in action mode. And so you're smiling because then you say, oh, you're here too, my favorite friend.
I have a big family.
Yeah. And then you soften into that. And then you say, stay. Protect all of us. I wrote this poem once where I wrote about all these protectors. I said, build a fire, build a campfire and tend to it. And as you sit there, all these protectors come. And instead of letting them take over the show, you say, oh, you're here. Sit around the edge of the campfire, right where the darkness is, and keep your back to them. Keep your back to the darkness. Don't let anything scary come in. And watch over what happens next. And then you just tend to the fire again and you wait as all the protectors show up and you build this circle around yourself. And then you start seeing the little babies, the ones who are famished and malnourished, who've been abused, they're bleeding, injured in so many different ways. And they start crawling towards you. And then the protectors all get in a huff again, like, no. And they start saying, hey, let's solve for this. What are you doing? This isn't real. And whatever the inner critics and all the protectors will say. And then you stay calm and you tell them it's okay now. We can meet all of these parts of us that are so hard to look at. And they start coming into you. And each of them crawls onto your lap, one after another. And as they crawl into your lap, the memory of what that little thing experienced comes into your body. And it's not necessarily with memories that you can remember. And your inner critic will say, like, this isn't real because you have no memories of this. And all you have are the physical testimony that is given to you. And so you bear witness to this incredibly devastating experience of not being enough, this incredibly devastating experience of being so small that you didn't have power to stop anything from happening. And you sit in your powerlessness and you say, oh, so that's what it was like to be so small and so powerless, so unwanted. And then you grieve and cry with the part of you that's crying in your lap, and you cry with that part in your lap. And whenever that happens, then you realize that you're in the lap of God, and God is crying and grieving with you. And you're being held in this fractal of divine beings. The angels are around us, weeping as well. And the whole universe is in sync again, having one good cry. And even the devil I saw sitting nestled in the roots of an old oak tree, crying, feeling so tired from having to play this role and being misunderstood for his role. There's a poem I thought of. Maybe it'll make it into the book. It becomes sacred. The work becomes sacred. I feel myself insecure using these metaphors and talking about religious metaphors. It's so interesting. The invocation really gave me permission to just say whatever comes up.
They do say this, I've heard this before. They do say that a lot of times when you have childhood trauma, you try to go back in your mind to that place and envision yourself in that trauma, that age, and then you go visit yourself the adult version of you, what would you say to that? Like the same thing you're saying, just taking out the God part and just talking to the child. And what would you do for that child right now? Let's say the child was getting abused and you were there now. What would you do, or what could you do?
Mm-hmm.
You would actually just hold the child, and that unification of the adult version of you and the younger version of you becomes in harmony and synchrony, and that actually heals a lot of the childhood trauma.
Yeah. Sometimes that's how it goes. Yeah, I've had people also stand between the child and the abuser and say, you are not touching this child again. I've had people kill the abuser and experience the fullness of their rage at what happened. There's so many different ways. The important thing is to let it be unknown as you walk in, at least when I'm guiding people into that place. I'm partly suggesting things, partly waiting to see what arises, partly being surprised by what arises. As long as it's still deepening the work, and I have to work really hard to make sense of it sometimes, how it's helpful, what's going on. But yeah, I think I'm responding to the way you put it was, I didn't want people to think that it had to go a certain way. Again, be in a state of suspension and waiting, and letting the impulses take over. Rabbi, you're about to ask a question?
I'm having a thought, which is that I'm sure that people came here with expectations to get a class, a lecture. They wanted definitions. They wanted words. And I think what they got is much deeper than that. We are having an experience. I'm wondering, just thinking out loud, if it would be possible to just to show it. You know, they say show, don't tell. Maybe if you'd be comfortable with interacting with some more people and just having that experience, and so that we could all observe, maybe that might be helpful.
Dr. Ham, should I ask any volunteer if they want to discuss or have a back and forth with you about personal trauma?
Maybe. Sure. It has to be done where it has to be an educational experience. It has to be for all of us in some way. Although, and I don't know, there are certain states where this would not be allowed. As I was reading jurisprudence for licensing exams, I think Utah or I forget, somewhere in the mid.
We're not billing insurance.
Yeah, we'd have to do a light touch, and not. I'd want people to still be respectful of their own privacy as they're speaking.
Anybody has their hands raised is willing to go? Mary, are you willing to go? Okay. Here's volunteer.
Hi, Mary. I know you.
Unmute.
Hi. I was noticing a strong need to raise my hand to be seen. And as you spoke, I was just viewing that part of me that always wanted to be seen, to be good, to get recognition.
Amazing. And what happened next? What were you feeling as you were observing that part?
It also comes up a strong crave for connection. Like, as I experienced them many times with you, that I when I had the opportunity to be on, and it was always a gift, that I got real connection, and it felt like priceless.
So it's really about the connection with me right now. I thought I was asking about when you saw that part of you yourself, what was your response to seeing that part of you that wants
Yeah,
to be seen
you
and
helped
be
me, you helped me a lot connect to the realness, and not like I had many times confusion, like between stories I was telling myself and the real experience. And I was able to get a connection with myself, the real place I was at.
you're exemplifying a non-judgmental witnessing of whoever or whatever comes up, right? In a soft way. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that,
in a very real way, in a way that I couldn't get to it on my own.
yeah, that's the weird thing. It has to be both with someone, but with yourself, and like two legs. Is there anything that that part of you wants to say? Just hi.
There's a part that feels softened, and then there's still the jittery, anxious parts that are like, ask all of your questions, get everything solved right now.
Yeah. But what's so funny is that as you sat there looking back at me, I could really feel the part that said, there's nothing that needs to be said. There's only the gaze that needs to happen, the looking between two people, the unadulterated, unfiltered looking with soft eyes. That's incredible.
Magical presence.
Thank you for sharing. She's a plant.
Kim, do you want to go? Yeah?
Wait, we need to understand a little bit. We need to process.
What just happened?
Mm-hmm.
Well, can I I'm going to play sort of like a intermediary here. I'm not going to go as experiential as Dr. Ham, but I'm not going to be quite as intellectual, Menachem, as you may be looking to go. And I'll say like this. I'm going to get personal. You can refuse to answer me. I'm talking to you, Menachem. What was happening for you during that conversation?
Well, things were slowing down. Even the moments in between where there were no words. I think that's part that to me that was like getting me to a place where like, wow. Well, more real.
It's a little bit of a paradox because you were profoundly affected by the gaps where there were no words, and now we want to go back and give it words.
No, because I'm like Usher was saying, going back and forth to understand that Dr. Ham came to a place, and I want the audience to understand, a place where you don't have to say anything. It's okay. You're like that easy, simple gaze, soft. That's it. It's good.
Yeah, it was good because it was what was happening. I don't want anyone to suddenly start to do that outside of the right moment. Do you know what I mean? It's not a prescription.
Yeah.
We're
It's like
mirroring
everything
mind.
we're discussing tonight is not something you can really do this now, do this. Okay, step number 2. Like you were
Yeah.
saying at the beginning, every person is unique, and you have to see what comes up and just observe.
Yeah, the homework is to shut up and sit
I love that.
and suffer.
Well, no. So a lot of people have a hard time with that.
I know. And
So,
then
so that's why we need some practical something.
Menachem, was that you or was that on behalf of the audience?
Both.
no, it's really hard. It's incredibly painful.
No, there are people. I talk to people. I'm saying there are people who are really. I'm thinking I probably have those spaces I also don't want to go, but I don't want to talk about it now. But there are people who they're healing, they're doing the steps, they're going to therapy, they're trying so hard, and they're always finding themselves in that hard place, and they just can't let go. What's going on?
They can't let go. Is that what you said?
I said they can't let go, but what they want is that they want to have a normal life already. They're so anxious and they're so worried. Why can't they have a regular life?
Yeah. You create a pocket. You create this small pocket of just being with yourself, of just being fully present in the moment. And you just reclaim that one moment. And then you say, oh, wow, I just had a minute of pure peace. That's amazing. And then you go back to being hectic and fighting wars and escaping or whatever else you have to do. And then you practice coming back to the center of who you are again and into that moment. You just keep reclaiming one moment at a time. Life is terrifying and scary and dangerous. We're not supposed to be like this all the time. The trick that what trauma does is that it tells us it's too dangerous to ever not be in survival. And so we have to intentionally come back to presence. And then learn how to be able to flip back into survival when you need to, and then come back into presence again.
So when Menachem says people are lamenting, can't they just live a normal life? Are you saying that that lack of ability to live a normal life is due to them being in survival mode?
No, when people are saying, when people are lamenting, that's totally different. Lamenting is a different energy. It can mean a few different things. Like lamenting could be a defense against feeling. They think that they're feeling because they're saying woe is me and they're bemoaning, but it's still not the same as truly being in the suffering that you're supposed to be in. It's actually criticizing it, wishing it weren't here. Why can't I have a normal life? It's saying I don't want this feeling that I'm having right now. So it's actually it's all frothy, agitated defensiveness. What I'm saying is that if there are scary, dangerous things happening, you better be, for a moment, and they're real and they're proximal, like close to you and potentially going to happen to you or your family, then you better be anxious and not have a normal life. You better realize that you're not in a normal situation and you have to do what you want to do to survive. But if you ever have to do that, then the brain says, don't ever turn that off. The world is just too dangerous. And that's really one of the coolest things that trauma theory has taught us, is that the brain that's learned to be in trauma mode never wants to go back off. And all of the work is coming back into a sense of safety again, which is nearly impossible, especially, for PTSD, it might be like war trauma. It might be easier if you come back home to a safe place. And even then it's hard. But if your home was the battleground, then there's no place in the world that's safe. So how do you expect someone to do that? It's a nearly impossible task. And so you just say, in this moment now, are you safe? And what does it mean? What does it feel like to be safe? It means to be able to gaze at another person without worrying about what words are said. It's to have an open, soft smile. It's to just appreciate the other, to sit in appreciation for each other. Nothing else needs to be done except appreciation.
Is it important to know when that survival mode switch got flipped on?
My reflexive answer is no, absolutely not, because then you're awakening the mind again. But if you use that narrative to reassure yourself, this is not you making things up. This happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
You have every right to feel the way you do. Then it's a wonderful tool and a validating thing. So again, like, you have to always know how you're using something, why you're doing something. It's never just the question itself.
Years ago when we spoke, we mentioned in passing, it was a brief conversation, but we spoke about epigenetic trauma. And I know that's something that you believe is a legitimate thing. And if that's the case, then it's possible a person wouldn't ever be able to consciously know how the survival mode got flipped on.
True. But at the same time, it's complex, because a person whose epigenetic survival mode is switched on are probably being raised by parents who were highly stressed and highly traumatized. And their parenting is going to be impacted. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be abusive to their child, but they're going to teach them to be wary of the world, to teach them that bad things could happen anytime, that don't waste anything, don't take anything for granted. There's an anxiety to the parenting, even if there's no abuse. And there's, more often than not, there's emotional neglect or a little bit of emotional volatility. And those subtle things are the more devastating things, because most of my patients are more emotionally abused and neglected than physically abused and neglected. That stuff is easy. Like, there's proof. There's real world proof of that stuff. But the emotional abuse is just and the emotional neglect is just the air you breathe when you grow up. You think that's just normal. And if your parents are the ones who treat you this way, then you deserve it, or this is just the way that life is supposed to be.
I don't want to over intellectualize this, but I know that there's a common discussion that goes on, particularly in the Jewish community. I'm sure it goes on in parallel ways in other communities, but I'm privy to the way this discussion is had in our community about how when people start to recognize their childhood trauma, it almost automatically becomes this assignment of blame. So now I figured it out. It's my parents who messed me up. And it becomes very contentious. It's first of all, on a theological level, it's disturbing to some people, this idea of finding fault in your parents, but also just on a personal, emotional level. It's like it can cause a rift in the relationship. And are you able to speak to that? Yeah.
Sure. Again, I would slap the objects out of your statements.
Let's do it. Okay.
What I would say is, as you uncovered what happened, you are outraged at it. That's an emotional truth. And that's absolutely valid. And when you sit in the outrage of what happened, the really cool thing is that you're saying, I didn't deserve this. And that's a beautiful thing to come to. So in one stage of recovery, there has to be blame. You can't stay there. I hope it's a fleeting stage, because people who get stuck there are willing to scorch the earth to get justice for what happened to them. And then everyone loses. It's a Pyrrhic victory. But you have to really feel the anger at, I did not deserve to be treated this way. It's a protective energy. And you hold your inner child close to you and say, you are not going to be hurt again. You did not deserve this. And usually when you give that enough space, then the grief follows soon after and the sorrow. And that's a more painful thing to feel because it feels powerless and helpless. And no one's coming. You sit in the abandonment that's implicit in the trauma. And then that's one of the hardest sufferings to go through, abandonment trauma. And then once you get through that, then you start to get all the flowers and sunshine and roses and unicorns and all that good stuff.
Pam, could I summarize that? Is that okay?
Let's try it again.
So what you're saying, let's use an example. Let's say somebody in their childhood was neglected or abused by their parent, right? Where I think Rabbi Taub was trying to allude to, there are a lot of people when they start going for therapy, at the end of the day, a big shift of blame goes to their parents. I mean, I've seen it many times. So there is a process of it of blame and anger. It's part of the healing process, but eventually we need to move from that process, from the blame and the hate and objectifying it to the person and accepting it. No.
Not need to move. You're already racing ahead.
Right. Okay.
Try
allowing it to move.
Okay.
Allowing it to move to just acceptance, and it is.
Oh, no. As you allow the blame to live, and you say, of course you have a right to be angry because you did not deserve this, then naturally it melts. So you have to do no allowing, no pushing or anything. You just stay with what's here for as long as it needs.
So my question is, the people that are holding on to tremendous anger, I'm using the parents as an example, for years and years and years, are we saying that they're just still in that process?
No, sometimes they're stuck, and you need to help them to realize that they're using it as a defense against going into more vulnerable, painful things.
Very deep what you're saying. Super deep. What you're saying is super powerful and super deep.
Why?
Because it's a lot of pain that somebody else caused you. And in our mind, that person we need to get vindication, we need to get revenge, we need to get, and it's not fair to us. So if it's your parent, you ignore him, you hurt them. If it's somebody else, you try to hurt them. If somebody raped you, you try to put them in jail. Because you need that, because you think you'll feel better.
It often allows the grief to come next. If you allow it. Sometimes the anger does have a function of saying we need to eliminate the threat. And then that's fine, fair. If that's what the anger needs, then you eliminate the threat. I don't have an opinion about whether that's right or wrong.
Tam, do you want to do one more guest? One more question, one more live?
Maybe. We can see how it goes.
Okay, let's do one more. Bela.
Hi.
Hi.
So Dr. Ham, I wanted to ask about fear, like what comes up for me watching this. with the work that I do, like fear just comes up, like all of a sudden I know what that feels. I know what it feels like to be overtaken by stuff and to move through it. But like when there's no one with me or when I'm alone and that like fear comes up and like what do I do?
I didn't understand. The fear comes up when you're alone? Because
Yeah.
you're alone?
Alone, being alone, like being the fear feels like I'm not safe.
When you're alone, you
Like
feel
watching this video, like watching this podcast and feeling everyone's stuff, and then all of a sudden I feel fear of being alone.
wait, you're feeling everyone's stuff?
Seeing everything, seeing my own pain, my own like stuff.
And then so you get a sense that there's some experiences to be had. And then there's a fear of being alone in it, alone because it'll overwhelm you.
Yeah. My fear. Like I get fearful. I'm like, I look around, I feel like I'm drowning. I feel like, and I could have this anywhere. All of a sudden I see something that like pain, emotion, and then I get like fear and it paralyzes me. And like,
You just went up again.
yeah.
You said drowning. You said fear of drowning. And that was the heart of it, I think. And then you start to recycle the explanation.
Yeah. Okay.
Start with fear of drowning again. Elaborate on that.
I feel fear, and then as I'm letting it feel, I feel like I'm falling lower and lower and lower, and I'm losing track of everything, and then I'm just myself, and it's so scary, and that's it. That's where life, like it's so scary. There's nothing more, and from that place, it's just fear, very strong fear.
There's a part of me that thinks that that's a very valid thing to feel, and that you need to be with people as you plumb into this deep work.
But
So
if there's no people, there's this therapist, then how do I do it? Like, how do I go with it? A constant base to feel like such fear. It's scary. And
you said there are no therapists, or you said there's
no,
only,
I have a therapist, but besides for once a week, a therapy session, like,
and the therapy helps you to go into it?
yeah,
I don't know. This is a practical question. Only you would know. You'd have to see what opportunities are right in front of you that you're not taking, and then you look at why you're not taking them. Or if there aren't any, then you'd have to work really hard to honor this fear. I think it's legitimate, like I said, that we all need to be held and witnessed as we do this work. Hmm.
like, what do I do from that place?
What place?
Or any from fear?
You
How do
listen
I
to
get
it. The fear saying, go grab some people to help us with this, or hold our hands while we do this.
right?
Oh, what was that? Your face changed.
It was that I've done that for so long, and that wasn't really, and it got me stuck in different places because
Yeah, that's what I've always worried about. People aren't very good at this. You have to find the right people. You can't give up because there are so many bad people out there. You need to find a group of people who are trying to hold each other, like Fresh Start. You could come to Fresh Start.
it's just there.
Oh, and was it helpful to be among people while?
It was. It was. That was that. And then there's real life.
Then you recreate fresh start at home. You know what it feels like when you have the right people.
Right.
Your body knows what it needs, what kind of people it needs. Oh, that big sigh. You're saying it's daunting. I'm not sure there's anyone else. I think there's an alumni network at Fresh Start. Maybe there's some aftercare stuff that Fresh Start can work on developing. I'm sorry that's so hard. This is a legitimate thing your body is declaring to you, that you need more support around you as you do this work. It's not a failing on your part that there's not something that you're supposed to do differently, I don't think. I wouldn't want you to have to do this alone. Not a satisfying answer. You want to say something? Do you mind if Orit replies?
Sure.
Hi, may I just chime in for a moment? I'm not giving a question, I just want to give a note. But Usher has my email. It's very important to have something in place on a daily level, and you could reach out to me. So for example, if you're on a virtual forum, one of them is Beezy, and you hear other people and you're giving them support and they're giving you, that empowers you to help yourself move forward. So you need to have something in place every single day, whether it's live, virtual, what we have right now, Coach Menachem on Wednesday nights. So Reb Usher is going to send you my email. I have some more resources. It's not going to solve it, but you'll have people with you. And when you have to provide some empowerment, some positivity, some support based on what you got from Fresh Start, it's going to help you as well. So you need that hand holding. Thank you.
Sometimes like that makes me more fearful because sometimes people are just people, and then I feel alone. And then like, even if they're on their journey, mine is different than mine is whatever. And then again, I feel scared and alone, and then I go crazy also. So people, it's not always, I don't know.
Wait, I don't understand that. People are just people? Are you saying that if they don't have the same experiences as you do, then it makes you feel alone again?
No.
What did you say?
People, I myself have, people make me feel like I need to give back, to be whatever.
Oh, you didn't like that part. It felt like pressure to give, to move pay it forward or something.
Like it's being like, again, in the place of like,
Hey,
whatever.
well, what I would encourage is to learn to witness what arises rather than being in it. What happened was that what you heard, well, first of all, what was the overall way in which you heard Orit's response? Good or bad? Positive, negative?
Both.
Fascinating. See, yeah, but
Positive as in there's people out there, but negative because my experience with people out there isn't so good. So I'm scared.
perfect. And you're also worried that they're going to push you into giving to them instead of listening to you. Yes, no?
I have a tendency to give, like, yeah,
Well, not just that you have a tendency to, you're afraid that that's what's going to happen.
right.
Perfect. Witness it. See how all these things come up for you as you interact with people. Don't be in it. Although you'll have to be in it at the same time, but try to keep exercising this muscle of being able to witness what comes up when you're around people. And then you find a group of people who are willing to do the witnessing together. And you say, as you say that, this is what arises in me. And you're all suddenly rising above the actual interactions. And then once you rise above it, then you look at each other from up there. And you'll see each other in your authenticity. But you have to practice the witnessing. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Hey, Rabbi Taub, let's go to the closing segment, Dr. Ham, if
Yeah.
that's okay. So first of all, a big thank you to everybody for coming tonight and joining. Really appreciate it. And it's very powerful. And I hope everybody tonight was able to take something personal for themselves. I do believe a lot of people felt the difference from when we started to what the shift was. But anyway, let's go into the closing. And if it's first of all, a big thank you to Dr. Jacob Ham and Rabbi Shais Taub for coming on tonight, giving a very deep talk. I think it's really the beginning phase of just understanding what it is and have some concepts. This is, Yochanan is part 1 of 20. And hopefully people get a lot of chizuk from it and a lot of inspiration. And please join us next week, September 2nd. We don't have the speaker confirmed yet. Once the speaker is confirmed, we'll send an email. Again, everything will be recorded. It'll be on menachemberfeld.com. It'll be on Rabbi Taub's YouTube page. It'll be on Dr. Ham's YouTube page. It'll be on Fresh Start's YouTube page. You can watch the videos. It'll be on all the podcasts, Spotify, and everything you can listen to later. Please send it around to people. This topic is really relevant for everybody. If anybody has any questions, you can email coachmenachem@gmail.com. Tonight's program is 218, share 218. You can listen on the phone lines at 732-305-9011. And I'm just going to go to a closing, and then I will pass it over to Menachem, and then Rabbi Taub, and then Dr. Ham, if that's okay, unless you want to go first. But in closing, I would like to just say, I think tonight what I took out of tonight's program is the concept of objectifying and giving us stories, or so many ways to say it, give us, how do we say it? The tale that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that tale that we tell ourselves, I'll talk about myself instead of being I'm gonna listen to Dr. Ham. I'll talk about myself. So when I go through something and I feel my own feelings of something, a behavior, or something I'm not happy with, I go into the tale of the story of why, because by me, it has to make logical sense. Otherwise, I belong in a hospital, right? Because why would I do something like that? So I tell myself, right, there you go. So I'm watching your expressions. You're always watching mine. I'm watching yours. Back to him. Your eyes went up. So the point is that when I'm telling myself the stories, it's making me feel partially good, because I feel good that I'm able to logically objectify and feel like, oh, the reason I'm doing this is because of that. So now I'm normal and it makes sense. What I'm hearing from tonight, it actually might be counterproductive for me in a certain sense, because I'm not really sitting with it and just accepting it and just letting the feeling come and breathing through it and saying, this is who I am, not good, not bad. And just, even without the judgments, without who did it or what did it, and this is because of that. I remember even saying this once to somebody, I don't care if what I'm saying is true or not. It has to make sense. I know it might not be true. I'm totally cool with that. I might be acting crazy because this happened when I was 5 years old. And even if that story is that narrative is not true, I'm cool with it, because then I feel good. But I think that's probably blocking part of the healing. So I'm going to try to do this, maybe guided with somebody. Try to work on it and sit with it. Menachem loves sitting with stuff. He's sitting for years and years and sitting. I'm like, stop sitting already. But at least let me try it for a little bit. And Dr. Ham, I think tonight, just that knowledge alone, if people could get the sense of being okay with who they are being okay with their behaviors and things that bother them, taking away all the judgments and all the stories and all the narratives. Stop blaming everybody. Again, it could be it's part of the healing process, but it could be it's also just blocking you from really touching the core, even for a little bit, for 10 minutes, for 5 minutes. Some meditation music. Maybe we'll start feeling some real feelings. And then I'm going to play back what you said, the blossoms, the buds, the acorns. It just sounded so surreal. It sounds like we're already in the next world with God in paradise. So I'll try that. Thank you, Dr. Ham. Coach Menachem.
Yeah, Usher, I think everybody.
Can I leave Usher with one thing?
Yeah. If you want to go, you can go, and then we'll let the others go. Yeah.
When you sit, don't sit in empty space. Sit with the thing that's closest to your lived experience. And today, the lived experience was, I need a story. It gives me control. It gives me power. And you sit with that alone. So it's not just sitting in nothing. And you just mold that part over. And I feel like I had an image of a coin, the two sides of a coin, and you have these virtues of control, power, logic, and just lift it up and look underneath it gently.
Yeah, Usher, I want to say that I think the audience can hear it on your voice. From when you started until now, the way you're talking. Like, Usher, you should talk that way. We're getting there. We're slowly getting there. So I want to thank you, Rabbi Shais Taub and Dr. Han. I believe it's a different language, and most people are used to the logic language. They're busy figuring things out in their heads, discussing their trauma and why, and ups and downs, and not realizing that all of that is just running away from, like, that. Take a deep breath, slowing down. A lot of people are scared. Slow down. Why should I slow down? That could be so painful. That's where all the answers are. Not the answers. I'm saying the sun. You want to experience the sun, some light. If you're constantly running, you're not allowing life to happen. Whatever it is. So thank you very much. And again, like you mentioned, you don't have to do this by yourself. For beginners, for sure not. To find the community, to find the people that can hold your hands, that to give you that love, to be okay with who you are, with all your experiences while you're on this journey, so that you can slowly go home and learn how to eventually be with your thoughts and see it and sit with it, so that you can go on and not get stuck. So Hashem shall help us all. Thank you.
Beautiful, Coach Menachem. So I want to mention one thing, and if it's okay, I think Dr. Ham, is it okay if you give a closing thought, whatever is on your mind, and Rabbi Taub will go after you? Is that okay?
Sure.
So just want to mention again, tonight was put together by Yochanan Palter from Jewish Fresh Start, and like I said before, it's an amazing program. And the website is jewishfreshstart.com. Yochanan, you could reach out to him, speak to him. I'm just advocating for the program again for the people that want to start this process of really going down there. Really, I'm going to be honest with you. Everything that we spoke about tonight, I've experienced in Fresh Start, literally, with different exercise and different therapies. And it was therapies I've never done before in my life. So I happen to find it fascinating. And it was very powerful experiences. And again, for the people that want to really try, and people, again, you have to have the ability to go away for a week. You have to have the money it costs money. You have to be committed to it. It's something that could really start to move the needle. We're talking about life-altering changes where it's not like, okay, now I'm going to breathe this way and I'm going to feel better. I'm going to start exercising, and a month from now, this is like years of work, and it's a mindset, and it takes years and years to get there. So just putting it out there. If anybody would have an interest, please do that. And now, after 2 hours, I'm going to turn to Dr. Ham. Like I say to all the Jewish speakers, whatever comes from your heart, let it pour out naturally. So what do you feel, Dr. Ham, after 2 hours of sitting with such a beautiful crowd?
What I find so mysteriously perfect is each of the people who spoke up. And initially, I was thinking about Miri and thinking that she represents exactly the reason why we do this, right? Because I've never met her, but on things like this, maybe this is our third time seeing each other, fourth, I don't know. And yet the work continues somehow outside of these conversations. And you come in and changed it every time. So I love the idea of going to bed imagining that someone else runs with this like Miri has and lets the work continue. And then I saw that Robin left that way. Like she had an epiphany and can't wait to go stay with this part of her that she hasn't seen. And that's beautiful. And then on another plane, there is, oh, baby, I think, oh no, where's Corinne's gone? But there's the person who knows where they should go, but it's so painful to go there. That seems to represent another person on another stage of this process. And then Bibia, who's terrified of having to do it alone, each representing archetypes or each representing stages of the path. And each of us are on different stages. And these moments like this help us all advance a little bit in whatever part of the stage we're at. So, yeah, it's weird. It's not like I want to say anything, but I want to honor that things like this cause something, some growth or change or something alive to be born from this. That's so amazing and beautiful that we create through this time together. And I want to just honor that thing, this thing that's living now because of us. Thank you for creating it with me.
Beautiful, Dr. Rabbi Taub, let's bring the rabbi for the closing.
So, first of all, thank you for the trust, the implied trust in me to let me conclude the evening. And if I leave anything unsaid, I'm sure you'll make sure that it gets said. My experience tonight is that I had an experience. And I know that, I've been on this podcast many times, Baruch Hashem, and this was very different. I'm going to tell a quick story that happened to me the other Shabbos, not last Shabbos, Shabbos before. I was brought to a Shabbaton that was for young professionals. And there was a part of the program which was billed as a Fabrengen, a gathering. And so I was supposed to lead this Fabrengen, and I was talking and telling stories and sharing some teachings. But if you know the format of a Fabrengen, there's a very important part of it is the Nigunim, the Hasidic melodies. And what was interesting to me at this particular Fabrengen is that when I would speak, everyone was quiet, like really quiet. There were hundreds of people in the room, and everyone was listening very respectfully when I would speak, which is not easy in it's Shabbos, there's no microphone in a room, in a ballroom with 300 people. It's not easy to get it quiet, but amazing, it was quiet. But then during the Nigunim, during the singing, it was like a cocktail party. Everyone was just chatting with their neighbor. And I actually pointed it out to them, and I said to them, these songs, these wordless melodies are so much more transformative than anything that I'm saying, than any words that I'm saying. Can we really just be with these wordless melodies and allow ourselves to experience them? And I pleaded. We went on into the night. I think we finished close to 3 a.m. And I pleaded with them, and it was so interesting. They couldn't do it. When I would speak, everyone listened. And as much as I pleaded, can we just be in the music? If you can sing along, sing along. If you can't sing along, then just listen along. But no, every time we went to the singing, it just became a bunch of conversations. And, I felt frustrated and I felt sad because I felt that there was something we could have had that would have been so impactful, and that for whatever reason, it wasn't the time or the place or whatever. That wasn't Hashem's plan. I feel like what happened tonight is that many of us, myself included, tried to get Dr. Ham to just talk. You're the doctor, you're the expert, give us a lecture, we'll listen, we want to hear information, we'll be good little students. And he refused in a very demure, gentle, but unambiguous way. And instead, he politely insisted that we have an experience. Now, judging from the personal messages that I've been getting during the past couple of hours, the jury is still out. I don't know what kind of DMs everyone else is getting, but I'm getting a very mixed bag. People who are not really sure what is this? I'm not so comfortable with this. This is not what I expected. And other people who are messaging me and saying, thank you for allowing the space for this to happen. So, it's interesting. You get up and you give a lecture and people either like it or they don't like it. They agree with it or they don't agree with it. But you create an experience. It's going to evoke a lot stronger reactions. People are going to feel much more passionate about it. And some people are going to really not enjoy it. And I think that's okay. And I really credit Usher and Menachem for allowing it to happen, because I know it's a departure from the typical shiur. But I think that we allowed space for something that really couldn't have been replicated through expository teaching. And Dr. Ham was expressing the hope that maybe somebody will go to bed tonight having been changed. To me, that's more than a hope. That's a certainty. I know I'm changed, and I know that there will be other people. There are other people already who were changed just from the sitting in this experience. And maybe later we'll have words for it. Maybe we won't. If we need words, we'll find words. But I feel that a healing took place. I feel a deep experience took place. I'm grateful to Usher and Menachem again for creating the virtual space for this. I'm grateful that there were over 300 people, even right now at this late hour, 353 people right now at present, who are apparently interested in having such an experience. And I pray Hashem should bless us that we use out this experience in productive ways.
Man, thank you everybody for joining tonight. Please get the recording, send it around to your friends, and we should experience happiness together and goodness. Dr. Ham, thank you for your time. Thank you for your vulnerability and your honesty. And may God bless you. Everybody have a wonderful night.
Thank you.